is Jessica, and I am a teacher with Studio B. And with Studio B, I share music and mindfulness practices. These practices keep me in touch with my inner experience with the body and the mind and the heart, and then just this reminding me that I'm connected to everything. So I'm different, but not not the same, but I'm also really connected and not separate. And those practices really help me to know that. And so that's why I'm here. That's why I show up. And I just wanted to give you some context about that. Oh, also just to, before I forget, that we're recording this and we're also streaming on Facebook. So feel free to have your video on and off, whatever feels comfortable for you. I just wanted to name that before we begin. Just to give some context about Studio B before we get going with our conversation and our very special guest today, Paula Ramírez. So Studio B is a global well tech company focusing on the collective well-being, but also emphasizing the personal and professional aspects about what it means to be well. We're a woman-owned organization with a deep commitment to inclusivity, accessibility, and we've recently launched a global co-op. So teachers across the globe virtually connect, and we're sharing offerings in mindfulness, meditation practice, yoga, horticulture, herbalism, creative expression. So it really runs the gamut. And we're coming together in this learning and this sharing space. And today I have the opportunity to share a conversation with a teacher of mine. I consider her a mentor of mine, Paula Ramírez. And if it's okay, I'm going to just read a little bit about Paula from this page here, to just so you get a sense of this incredible human being. So Paula Ramírez is a Colombian national. While studying anthropology, and because of an illness, she became curious about the ways in which human beings can build peace from within, and how resilience and healing can be inspired and guided through the body. She began her humanitarian work in India, Nepal, Thailand, and Burma, working for the Tibetan Government in Exile, among others. Paula has been co-directing Breathe International since 2013. Through mindfulness and somatic body work and anthropology, she's worked with teachers in conflicted areas, survivors of torture, gender-based violence, and landmines in Colombia, South Sudan, Iraq, Nigeria, Venezuela, and with the Rohingya refugees in Bangladesh for the International Organization of Migration. She has an MA in conflict transformation from Javadayana University, is an MBSR teacher from the University of San Diego, California, certificate in somatic experiencing, trauma-sensitive yoga facilitator from the Trauma Center, and a faculty teacher on the trauma-sensitive mindfulness course by David Trelevin. She participated in the collective trauma healing training by Thomas Hubble, took the first year of Rolfing therapy, and is currently doing a training on intelligent movement and feldenkrais based on somatic practice. So that is just a little bit of this incredible person's journey. And I'm really excited to welcome you, Paula. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jessica. Thank you, all of you, for being here.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm so happy to have this conversation with you, Paula, because a lot of what I've been practicing myself has been just coming into this relationship of, okay, is this feeling accessible? Am I feeling open? Am I in a curious place just with my body and my own mind? And this is something that I think is a nice dialogue for me to be having on the regular, so that whenever I'm in a position to be offering practice, I'm not leaving that out. And your approach to mindfulness practice is so multidimensional and so trauma sensitive and culture sensitive. So I'm really excited to be able to kind of walk through some of this with you. I think we can begin maybe just by maybe getting a sense of your journey and why that you were called to do this work. If that's okay, maybe we can begin there.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Jessica.
Yeah.
Well, I began this journey, as Jessica read, because of an illness. Yeah, so I had an self-immune illness when I was 18, and I wanted to study music, but then my doctor said, well, you can do two things. You can take cortical, or you can go and check what's happening with yourself. So because he was saying like that illness you have is basically is your body against you, and that's basically like a mental health issue. So he said, you go and do yoga, meditate, run marathons, and that's where the whole journey began. Also, that was the beginning of my personal journey, but also the journey around how mindfulness combines with peace building, comes along very much with having been born in a country affected by such a long armed conflict. Yes. So for me, the question of how is it that violence is perpetrated, and how is it that collectives allow violence to happen, was very much in my thought, in my heart, since I was a child. So yeah, that's where it all started.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. And with Breathe, I'm wondering if you can just talk a little bit about Breathe International, because I think Breathe stands out because there is this, I guess, sense of just wanting to offer these practices in ways that are sensitive to social context, social events, and not leaving that out, so that we can show up and really connect without assuming for others, and being aware that everyone's coming from different experiences, and especially in trauma affected areas as well. Can you just tell me a little bit about why Breathe began, and even a little bit about this reconciliation and peace building that Breathe sort of puts a flashlight on?
Yes, thank you. So Breathe. Well, I met my colleague, yes, the co-director of Breathe, in Hungary. We met in 2009 in a conference on peace education, and we were both very much interested in peace building and ways in which we could build peace inside communities affected by violence or armed conflicts. And when we met there, we realized that we both shared a common view that was, yes, it's very important to be at peace with the other. It's important to be at peace with the collective. But where does, in the peace building work, yes, where does peace from within falls? Yes. And I had been coming from my own journey with my body, with understanding my illness. Matthias had done a lot of Vipassanas. And so everything started with that question. Yes, when we talk about peace building, how in peace building theory we can also include peace from within. So we both started so we met there, and then he went to Laos, I went to Asia. I started combining human rights with mindfulness work. Yes, and what was very important for me was when I was doing human rights work with Burmese refugees in Thailand, it was very interesting to see that I was talking to them about human rights, yes, and we were learning about human rights, but they didn't have any of their human rights, like granted. So we started, like going into a into a healing journey, really, into understanding our own story. Why am I here? What is it that I have done as a result of my history? And we started, like seeing how this reflection on our story is a reconciliation process as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. There's this teacher of ours, Bob Stahl, who says mindfulness is not about the breath, it's about you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and that has been very, very powerful, because how can we bring more awareness but more compassion into the human being that we are? And that's where reconciliation comes about. Yes, the reconciliation from within, so that I can have enough space to actually see you and see the other
Mm-hmm.
as a human fellow. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So Matias came to Colombia. He got married with a Colombian woman, and he said, why don't we start something together here? And we started working with teachers and with schools in regions very much affected by the armed conflict here in Colombia. Yes, at that time, Respira, which is breathe in Spanish, was born. Yes, with this intention of bringing mindfulness practice into peace education and into peace building work. And then it opened. Yes, we worked in these places that were again affected by the armed conflict, and we started piloting a project with women that have been used as weapon of war in the frame of the conflict as well. It was a project funded by IOM, which is a UN agency that works for migration. And we started doing MBSR, the former mindfulness-based stress reduction program. But what we started seeing is that when people have that space to be together in a pause, to be together just in a safe space, talking about themselves, feeling about who they are, a lot of cultural resources come as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So there's this power that collectives have in their own story as well of pain. There's as well a lot that comes. So yeah, so when that happened, the results of the evaluation of that program were very positive, and they told us, well, if you managed to make a program like that work in Colombia with Afro-Colombian nationals, why don't you try it in South Sudan?
Mm-hmm.
So we went to South Sudan and started working there with ethnic issues, using mindfulness work for reconciliation.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and in that way, Respira, which was very much Colombian based, started opening from this like south north perspective, like from the south hemisphere, bringing what Breathe is today, which is based in Switzerland. We are working in several countries.
Yeah, thank you so much, Paula. It's really, I was saying before we began the call here that I'm inside of this reconciliation and peace building training with Breathe, and it's such a inspiring place to be practicing with folks, because we're coming from different corners of the earth. And to speak to what you were saying, Paula, it's, there's so many cultural resources that show up, and resources is really the word that comes to mind. And when you mention MBSR, because I'm an MBSR teacher as well, I'm thinking to myself, yes, how does MBSR look and feel when you walk into different spaces? And for instance, a body scan, which is one of the foundational practices in MBSR. And just for folks that are not aware of it, I don't want to reduce it, but just kind of going through the body in a systemized way being in touch with each part of the body and bringing the attention there. And when the mind wanders, then gently bringing it back. That's kind of a little bit of a framework, or at least as I'm understanding it in a really quick way. But what does a body scan, for instance, look like inside of sharing practice with landmine survivors in Colombia? I know that you've worked. How does that look and feel when people are missing parts of their body?
Yeah. I feel mindfulness work, like for me, the most important thing before I go into teaching any kind of practice is really checking in with myself. Yes, like where am I? Yes, like how can I, what is it that I can give to this group right now? And how much context, how much do I know about the people that I'm working with? Yes, so around the body scan, what I found with migrants, yes, or with refugees, is that the body scan was actually a place for resting. Yes. So the scope of the body scan, yes, as we know, is like creating awareness of the body moment by moment. But if you're tired, yes, and if you find that that specific spot, that place with that group, you feel safe, it's totally natural that you want to go to sleep. Yes. So for us, it was like, it's not just attention, but there's also compassion inside of our work. Yes, and we don't need, like, I mean, there's no need to use the word compassion as such, but it's like, if you need to sleep because this is the place where you feel safe, that's compassionate, and that's all that people need. Yes, and that's what their awareness may need in the next session, or yes, so that they can start slowly realizing and noticing that attention in the body. Yes, but what is it that they need first? So that's on one side. And then working with landmine survivors, it has been a whole journey of learning. When I first started, I don't know, like 7 years ago, I thought that the best way to practice, because I was working in groups with people that had lost different limbs. Yes, so it was like not all of them had, I don't know, like lost their right leg. Yes. So I was just saying, okay, maybe if there's a person in this group that doesn't have his or her right leg, but if there's another person without the left arm, I'm not going to name those parts. Yes, I was like saying it's better not to name them. And then moving forward, it was like, no, wait a minute, they actually feel it, the phantom limb. Yes, the phantom limb. And so we started working a lot with the body scans around how is it that we make presence of that limb that is not there, but it is there. Right. Yes, so it has been huge for them in terms of working with pain, in working with understanding their own body and the dimensions that they perceive of their body. So yeah, it has been a beautiful journey with the body scans.
Yeah, thank you, Paula. That's beautiful. And what you're saying just sort of touches me in a way, and it reminds me that that I'm not, whenever I'm in a place of privilege to offer a practice or share a practice, to just be in my own body, embodying the practice, not as a teacher or someone that has an answer. And so when I'm hearing you, like at first when you were saying like, oh, maybe I don't name you, there's tendencies for at least me, I can speak for myself, to how am I going to make this practice feel okay for this person or these people. And I've always found that doesn't work for me to be having this conversation with myself, because really it's the deep listening of being in the collective. And it's beautiful to hear that. So for yourself, when you meet a moment of dysregulation or activity, um, how do you maybe these days meet that moment in your own practice?
Yes, I feel that mindfulness work when I do my daily practice. Yes, it's for me a small check-in, even if I don't have like time to make a long practice,
Right.
just a small check-in to see like what am I waking up with.
Mm.
Yes, just a moment to what am I waking up with, and that gives me like a baseline for the day. And then I'm constantly checking, and here while I'm talking, or before we started, yes, I could feel my chest, like the heat, or my hands, yes. And it's like, okay, going back to that, and then perhaps moving my hands. Or when you said let's do a small practice, yes, I was moving a little bit, giving space to my spine. And if I give space to my spine, I know that I'm going to be able to breathe deeper.
Mhm.
um, but is this constant check-in that the practice allows
Mhm.
for
Yeah.
us to see. It's always there, available, every signal that we need to listen to be in relation with ourselves, with others, of the world. It's always here, it's happening.
Mhm. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah. And I love also that earlier when you were talking about Bob Stahl's understanding of mindfulness is not a breathing practice, it's about you. And I always like to remember that as well, just that, okay, this is not something that I have to feel in any particular way, or it's just even just knowing. And I love too this check-in for me during the pandemic, and in particular, my practice has shifted. And I'd be curious to learn a little bit about that with you as well. But just for me, a lot of it has been relational, just noticing my body language in speaking and listening. Like, am I leaning forward right now? Am I trying? And, just, okay, here we are, we're talking. I can kind of just, I'm on my yoga ball and just sort of, yeah, feel into the moment and see if there's tension or holding, and not to judge it, but just to see it or to know it. But for you, over these many months of the pandemic, have you noticed a shift in practice, or maybe the practice is just changing and that is the practice, and also inside of the offerings as well that you've been able to share?
Yeah, yeah. Wow, yes, this month, huh? This year has been quite challenging for many of us. And for sure the practice has been a lot about stopping and listening to what's happening in me, in others, but in the larger scale.
Hmm.
Yes, and also because of the work that I'm doing right now, with Breathe, we are supporting gender-based violence survivors, like the frontline workers, the people that work on mental health for gender-based violence survivors. We're working with them during this time of COVID in different countries. And it's been a lot about really listening deeply of what is this moment asking from us.
Hmm.
Yes, what is happening, and what is the quality of really making a pause, of really stopping, of really giving space.
Right. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Thank you. And speaking of this of resources, and I'm just thinking too about the frontline workers, just like showing up and to offer practice. Earlier on in the pandemic, I was sitting with a nurse here in New York, virtually, sharing practice, and just that deep listening to what might be needed and what may already be resourceful in one's life, and to put almost like a flashlight there, as part of the practice. Like, so for me, I've, 30 plus years of just being a person that loves music and makes music. And sometimes I'm thinking to myself, is this mindfulness practice or is this not? When do I call it this? When do I don't, don't I? And then I'm thinking, instead of all of the work and the offerings that you do, Paula, like the practice just, it must be so multidimensional, not just this sitting and breathing or body scan or whatever, but and I'm just curious if there are, over the years of your experience and being across the globe in so many different communities, have there been practices that have shown up that have really moved you, that would, otherwise sit outside of what maybe gets dangerously boxed in as mindfulness practice, at least here in the West?
Yes, yes. Thanks for that question. I feel like bringing back again my dear Bob Stahl, and his mindfulness is not about the breath, it's about you. Yes, and I feel when you ask me that question, two things come to my mind. Yes, and the first one is mindfulness practice. I was doing like a self-care sessions for grave diggers in South Sudan. Yes, so they were newer people, 7 men, huge men, yes, that have been burying bodies in South Sudan for the past 5 years. And they had like a very serious PTSD and yeah, because all the experiences that they have lived. And it was amazing because the possibility again of stopping, yes, and realizing their breath, their tensions, their body, showed us a way in which mindfulness practice ended up being two things. One, how to dig the grave in a way that was more supportive for their body and for their spine. But the second one, which is amazing, is one of the things that they were mourning about the most was the fact that they were not able to do rituals because they had to bury people and it was like this massive thing. And they were like, the sadness, the deep sadness that they had was, we are not able to do any ritual here, nothing. So we started reincorporating into their work their own cultural practices, their own rituals, their Godquoth, yes, that is the name of the newer world, yes, and how is it that they used to bury the bodies, the head towards the east, like many things. And then it was like, that was mindfulness practice, yes. How is it that we can integrate rituals, beliefs into what we are as human beings? How can we see that as a resource that we have because we're part of a collective? Yes, so that's one that I'm thinking about. And then the other one is I was doing self-care work with humanitarian workers in South Sudan as well, in a different camp, and we had to go and offer some food, yes, like to give food, and it had to be quick, yes. And we, part of the mindfulness practice was, how is it that we are going to give that food, yes. If we give it, how is it that we engage, how is it that we connect with the eyes, yes. And it's different, yes, when I connect with you, when I give you this. And I have to run because this is a humanitarian thing, yes, like the operation has its own speed, but there's a quality of being present and being human and connecting with the other that makes a huge difference.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, and just thinking about giving too. I guess perhaps during winter seasons where there are multiple different holidays across the globe, and just thinking about, for me, I'm thinking about like giving without an expectation, perhaps, and just being in that process, like you were saying, like just making that the process of giving to give, um, the practice. And it's beautiful to hear about, especially too, just the act of digging and making that the practice of being in tune with what might be needed moment to moment for their bodies. Yeah, I'm just seeing.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's just seeing that there's some comments just coming in, and Christine says this is such a compelling illustration of what it means to live mindfulness in every moment, and yeah, I agree with you, Christine. And Paula, were you going to add something there as well?
Yeah, I was going to say, what what happens to mindfulness practice when we are working with people that are not as privileged as we are.
Right.
Yes, when we're working with people that are living in a survival mode, because that's the circumstances that they're living in. And it's like, okay, if this is the life that you're living, how you can create space for a pause, for, yes, stopping, breathing, but how, the practice can turn immediately into daily life.
Exactly.
Yes, into the life that I have to survive. Yes. So it's yeah, it really becomes life, becomes the practice. There's no other way. There's no time for the caution.
Right. Right. Yeah. And really, I can only imagine the deep wisdom that was absorbed just being inside of witnessing folks tap into their resources, and just knowing that, and it just points to this perhaps truth that there's this innate wisdom in all of us. And so that's what's so exciting to share practice and make it not just an individual experience, which I think is integral to have inner transformation, but also to make sure that there's that connection, because there's so much to learn from one another, and to I guess just, it feels so alive for me to be in a relational practice and share space with other folks. For me, that's where it feels, yeah, maybe most alive right now. In particular, maybe especially because we're in physical distancing zone right now with the pandemic. Yeah. Well, I just want to also leave some space to see if there's anything that you want to share, Paula, as well. Something that I haven't brought into our collective space. I want to make sure that you are able to share and add anything here too before maybe we have time to open up.
Yeah. I feel we have touched upon like a lot of things. For me, I think one last thing is what is the place of our own practice, and how much do we listen to ourselves when we want to engage into doing mindfulness for people who have like suffered, or like in the humanitarian context. I can feel there are like lots of people very eager, like, or wanting to go on that path, and it's like, okay, yes, let's sit and work on your own understanding, on the on your own listening. Yes, and you have seen Jessica in our training that is like slow. Yes, and it's like, and what is happening to you and your own experience, and going in, and the movement practice are like, okay, can I differentiate my bottom ribs from the mid ribs from the upper ribs? Yes, like this whole map, so that we can have, yeah, the connection we need to listen deeply, yes, to ourselves and others. And as much space as we have, again, we're going to have more space for others outside.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for highlighting that. Yeah, I just want to reiterate that Paula and Matthias run this amazing global organization, Breathe International. I really encourage everyone to take some time to learn more about that. And inside of this training that I'm in right now, yeah, it's labeled as such, reconciliation and peace building. And I have to say that when I first came into it, I was like, I don't know, what are we going to do? And I love that one of the first questions was this deep inquiry. It's like, what does it mean? What does reconciliation mean for you? And of course, I think it's a change. It's a change. My response to that inquiry when I check in with myself, it changes, but it's very much as you were illustrating just now, this like, okay, I'm meeting this breath as it is, like almost like in seconds, like, okay, now I'm meeting this moment, or I'm meeting this, judgment, and I'm just seeing how I can be like really in an intimate relationship with whatever is happening, and with compassion, like you were saying earlier, because if I take that bit out, then I start to have all these storylines on top of like the raw data experience, and it kind of clouds the actual truth of what's happening. So it's yeah, pulling that back and taking the time to do that. To me, that's an act of kindness, compassion, and really the work of reconciliation with myself. So it's worth the time, and and worth not rushing, which I have a tendency of sometimes, the rushing bit. But yeah, thank you so much, Paula, for that. If there's some time, we can open it up to see what's here in this space, and just see how this is landing for folks, and if there are questions. And there's a few ways we can do it too. For folks that don't want to use their voice, but they want to share, you can use the chat feature. There's the chat at the bottom screen. You can throw in a question or a comment there. Otherwise, you can also unmute, and maybe we can spend a little bit of time just sharing about what we're talking about. Yeah. Yeah, Mary, jump on in.
Thank you, Paula, so much for this time, and also for the work that you do. I wanted to ask a little bit, you touched on it, about resourcing and how you care for yourself, and how this is more of a body of work instead of just a go and fix it solution. What do you do to continue to take care of yourself while you're doing this type of work?
Thank you, Mary. Yes, I feel it's my self-care strategy is this constant connection, like this constant check-in with myself. Yes, so I have like what is called like the formal practices of mindfulness. So if I can breathing practice, movement practice, yes. For me, the movement practice, laying down on the floor, it's super important because it allows me to feel my spine in relation to gravity, and that gives so much information for me around how much tension am I holding. And it also allows me to release tension in this whole place where I create a lot of tension here. So laying down in the floor and playing with the idea of gravity taking me, yes, it's such an important place for self-care. And others, I mean, there are other things there, but mainly that, and being in touch with people that I love. Yes, like just the social interaction. It's so regulating. Yes, it supports mental stability so much. Mm.
Mm.
Thank you, Mary.
Oh yeah, I see. It says get out of gravity. That sounds like feldenkrais. And actually, Paula, this is a training of that you engage in with as well. Is that right?
Yes. I've been doing feldenkrais for a while, for a number of years now. I don't know how many, but yes, I finally decided, okay, I'm going to be a feldenkrais teacher. I feel it brings so much listening, so much depth into understanding.
Yeah, I see. Noel, you unmuted. Do you have a question?
Yeah. I was curious about the quote, which I might say incorrectly now. So just that it's mindfulness being about you, this way of thinking of it, because depending on what I'm reading, sometimes it sounds, I get the idea that there is like no self, you know, like to encouraging this idea of like, lose yourself, just, you know, and which for me becomes more compounding an issue where I have a hard time giving myself compassion or giving myself the time that maybe I deserve to feel certain things or to feel like I can heal or whatever. But and this may be an idea of just, yeah, I'll leave it at that. I'm just curious about if you might elaborate on that, like phrase.
Yeah, if I hear you well, is mindfulness is not is not about the breath, it's about you, but then you, like how can that you combine with this fact that there's no you?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's such a good question. And I don't know. I feel that the people that I have worked with have felt so disconnected from life or from the collective that they're part of. Yes, that the possibility of feeling that there's someone, that there's a safe space for me, that there's a safe space for our collective. It's actually the basics for, in a certain moment, going into the depth of there's no me, there's no self. Yes, but I feel that it's more possible for me to feel that there's no self when I have experienced safety in this life. Yes, where I have experienced safety in existing. Yes. So yeah, I don't know if that covers somehow, Noel.
Yeah, thank you. It's a very nebulous question that I ask, but yeah, it's
Super relevant, right? Because this is about mindfulness work as well, yes, and like this idea of there's no self, and there's no self, but how can we get there if we don't feel safe? Yes.
yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Noel.
Thank you. There's a couple questions that came in through the chat. Jyoti says, this may have been covered earlier, but can Paula discuss how she establishes an environment of safety and deep listening for the practices that she leads?
Yeah, I think it has two sides to it. And if the place where I'm going to teach allows me to make it a little bit more cozy, or like, then like that's one thing that I would do, like to make it like a very like kind of a sacred space, like a ritual, like a but if there's no chance for that, the safe space is my container, is my own practice. Yes, is okay, how much space do I have to be here in this heat, with this dust, with this noise? Yes, how much can I be with discomfort? And as much as I can be with discomfort, that creates a lot of safety for others. So it's like, okay, yes, this is what we have. We're all sweating. Yes, I'm just thinking about this small tukul that we had in South Sudan. It was crazy. Like it was sweaty and horrible. It was like, okay, making space. I'm here with them. We're here together. And that created safety.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for the question.
And another question here from Janine. I'd love to understand how you establish a sense of trust with the communities you serve to be able to do this work, especially as you've mentioned, they are just in survival.
Yeah, Janine, thank you. I think anthropology makes a huge part in it. Yes, I'm an anthropologist in my background, and I love it. Like for me, is this way of being very, very sensitive around the history and the context that people are coming from. Where is it that what has happened in that land that you're working with, even if it's from far away. Now from this place, I'm working with 4 countries, and for me it's been like, okay, read about Iraq. Yes, boom, history. So that's one. And then the other one is really being with discomfort. Like when people know that you come from outside and they feel that they're not comfortable, but you're not comfortable because there's heat, because there's dust, because there's noise. So we're all feeling unsafe. And it's like, I have space. Yes, let's just be here. This is what it's present. This is what it's alive for us right now. And that creates a huge amount of safety. It's like, okay, people don't need to be worried if you're feeling comfortable or not. It's like we are all in this together with enough space. Yeah. Thanks, Janine.
Thank you. Yeah, what I keep hearing, at least for me, is just this coming back to this embodying the practice, just embodying the practice, like really that feels supportive, to just know that that's a lot of it is that. So, in these moments, like, what is it that's telling you that you're feeling discomfort? And then what is it that tells you that you're shifting from the discomfort and maybe to a place that's a little less discomforting, and just being really in touch with that. Yeah. And the power of presence.
Yeah, that and how that power of presence, Janine, you wrote sense of trust, and I feel that there's something that I have seen in these years, and is people and groups have what they need. There's, for me, I'm just there listening, like being a witness somehow of things that are already there, that want to happen. So this trust is not something that I establish, it's just something that I give room for, because what they need is there. It's there always.
Mhm.
Yeah, it reminds me actually of that famous quote from Ram Dass that, we're sort of all walking each other home. So,
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
yeah, so it's you're sort of allowing for that to happen, like by holding that kind of space.
Mm.
We're all walking each other's home. Beautiful. I'm
Yeah.
going to write that down.
Yeah. So
It's one of
nice.
those quotes that's always stuck with me, and yeah, really moving. And that's really what I'm feeling from, the work that you do.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thanks for sharing that, Janine.
Yeah. And I'm also seeing in the chat, Jen is saying authenticity and openness, the key to so much. Yeah. Yeah. I feel like I can sense, like my cat can sense when I'm, feeling a little upset. He'll just kind of come over and like sit on my lap or something. And the same thing with just other humans, even, people that I don't know at all, these moments of interaction, at a cash register or just on the subway, and just getting a sense of someone's presence. And yeah, I think what you're sharing here, Paula, is so powerful, because someone that just comes and sits with me if I'm feeling discomfort and just sits there sometimes can really just start to really regulate my body that feels all sorts of maybe tight and tense. And so that presence is so much. There's such I'm having so much faith in that these days. I feel more and more. Yeah. Wow, this hour is flying, and at least for me. And we're about 5 minutes to 3, and I was just wondering if you would be open to just sharing a closing practice, Paula, for our time here together.
Yeah, sure, I would love that. There's Rachel saying, in such season of suffering, what gives you hope right now?
Oh, thank you for saying that.
Oh, it's fine, I just started popping in.
Yeah. Beautiful question.
Brings me hope, the knowing of what we're able to be and do. Yes, I feel that having experienced like life and like humanity in such different contexts, and knowing that we know how to move forward. Yes, and there is this history, there is our ancestors that have lived through pandemics and through, we know this, and hopefully we understand how to listen more to ourselves and the environment. But I feel we have so much, there's so much power in what we are. And yeah, and see people flourish after war is one of my main, like grounds. It's like, oh yes, and not just the survivors, but the how do you call that, the ones that make the violence, perpetrators,
Yeah.
yes, as well. Yes, so both sides, to see both groups of people just thriving is just like, we got this. Yeah. Thank you, Rachel. Yeah, so just for 3 minutes of closing, yeah, see, we can just connect with this screen, yes, for a moment, and take a look to the videos that are on and the videos that are off, just making us part of our experience. The people that are here, the ones who have joined, we were 23 at some point, now we're 15. Just noticing, how is it to be able to see in each other's windows? Perhaps the smiles that come about in some of us, and from the people that we cannot see, but just their pictures. What comes alive? And as you make connection with these human beings, if it's also possible to bring the attention towards yourself, yes, to the place that you occupy in the world right now, that human being you are in this moment. What is that space? How do you feel that with yourself and in relation to these people that are here? Asking questions about hope, about connection, about not self. Just for a moment, if it's possible for you, if you feel like it, closing your eyes or leaving them slightly open so that we can savor in our inexperience this having shared and being together for the past hour. Each one of us in the place that we have in the world, but together, collectively. We're all locked in each other's home. Just you can stay for a couple of seconds here in silence. Yeah, I'm going to offer a bell ring. To finish this short ending practice. The sound fades away, checking with what you need right now. It's movement. Or just staying a little bit longer in the practice. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paula. And thank you all for being here and for sharing your presence. What a gift. I feel very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Jess, for introducing Paula. That was wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
And I'll see you soon, Paula, too, in the training.
Yes, see you soon. Bye.
Yeah. Bye.
Take care.